I don't particularly like being around people I don't know. When I'm around these people, I have to behave a certain way, talk a certain way, breathe a certain way, and all this, it makes me uncomfortable. Years ago, though, I went to the first Iron Maiden concert in India. It was in Bangalore, and I went by myself. I went to the palace grounds by myself, and I stood there among 30,000 people by myself. And when Maiden started playing, the entire crowd smushed together and they began to chant with Iron Maiden. I felt like I was part of those 30,000 people. I felt the electricity around me. I felt alive like I've never felt alive before. And I get a small hit of that feeling when I'm in a theater and people are cheering and shouting and screaming when a film does something kick ass. I watched Loka at home, sitting by myself, and I realized I should have watched this film in a theater where people were cheering and shouting and screaming. Because this is a good film. It's a damn good film. And I miss watching it with people who would have appreciated it as much as I did. Loka is a great film. It's loads of fun. It takes its time getting to the good part. You know what? It's a great film through and through. There are no bad parts. They're all good parts. The film has chattans or goblins, yakshis, or is that Kalyani Kattu Neeli? It has Odayans. It has a few other magical beings that aren't really explained in the film. And all these beings introduced, they made me realize I know nothing about South Indian folklore and mythology. I'm folklore stupid in spite of being from South India. I like mythology, I like folklore. When I was younger, I devoured tales of devas and asuras and monsters. And now that I'm older, I've stopped reading stories about magical beings. I've stopped consuming folklore and myths and legends. And I've turned into this weird old man. I think I need to change. Anyway, the Yaksha, Chandra, looks and feels like a vampire. She can go out at night. She has fangs. She drinks blood. She can't enter houses unless she's given permission. And some of these traits, they may be traits of yakshas, but mostly these are all traits of a vampire. Now, I like vampires. I love vampires. I've loved every vampire story I've read. But you're telling a story set in India with Indian characters and a story whose texture is supposed to feel Indian. It's odd then that you'd borrow so much from European or Russian lore. This is a low budget film, so they had to shoot most of it at night. Night because it's easier to edit around shots that aren't brightly lit. They had to shoot most of the film at night, and it made sense to inject vampire lore into the story. But this injecting of vampire lore into an Indian story, it didn't make me happy. I don't understand why Indian stories need to blatantly borrow from the West all the time. We have a rich heritage of stories to bank on. We can borrow from our own stories instead of borrowing from the West. Anyway, in spite of this little complaint, Loka is brilliant. It feels like those early Marvel films, only a lot better. There isn't years and years of lore to weigh down on the story. Loka isn't based on a comic book series that's run for 50 years, so it's free of all of that. It's free of all the interconnectedness that Marvel films bring with them. The story is something new. It feels coherent. It feels unified in tone. But there are interconnected stories here. Tovino Thomas's Goblin, for example, makes an appearance in the film, but his story is happening elsewhere. He's just taking a break from his own story to come over and help out a little. Dulquer Salman, who also produced this film, plays Odayan, another character whose story happens simultaneously in the same location but doesn't really intersect with our main story, except geographically. There are characters we only see but know absolutely nothing about. And these are all characters and stories that are interconnected. But they don't distract you from the story that's going on, the story of Chandra. Your focus is always on the central story. Loka Chapter 1 apparently is a low-budget film, but I didn't feel like it was a low-budget film. Admit it, I'm not the right person to judge budgets or money really. I'm pretty stupid when it comes to all of that. But still, it looked like a film that was made to be on the big screen. Also, apparently there wasn't much action in the film, but for some reason I thought there was. I liked the action. I like the many action scenes in my head, but few action scenes in film. I like them a lot. I like the villain. I know a lot of people online have been saying the villain was weak and was badly written, but I liked him. I liked him a lot. He was very unlikable, and the writers and the actor have done such a brilliant job of bringing this unlikability to screen. I loved it. Loka Chapter 1 is primarily a film centered around a woman, and this makes me happy. Films with women as leads versus film with men as leads, these are two entirely different stories. In India, films centered around men are usually focused on one objective: revenge, rescue, redemption, survival, or something similar. These kind of films, they're simple to follow, also very rewarding. I love these kind of films. These kind of films are awesome. Women, on the other hand, get a handful of shots to put forth their ideas, their views, and so they make the most of what they're given. They cram a bunch of different ideas rather elegantly into stories. Loka, for example, is a film about misogyny. It's also a film about the misuse of power, about mythology and folklore, about women standing up for their rights. It's a film about romance. It's a film about a bunch of different ideas that shouldn't work when put together, but it does. The film may not be written by women, but it still manages to do the bare minimum a female centric film is supposed to do. I like stories that are centered on women. I like stories centered around women so much. I'm going to digress here a little, but I like stories centered around women so much. I went and made a comic about two women fighting zombies, demons, and other monstrosities. It's called Adhira Mohi, and if you want, you can buy it from the Bullseye Press store. I'll stick a link somewhere in the description. Anyway, that about wraps up what I have to say about the film. I know a lot of people didn't like the film, and that's okay. A lot of people have bad taste. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.